So this morning I will bring you along on a journey high up in the mountains where the air is clean, skies are bright and colors are very colorful. It's a journey through a country full of rocks and there's nothing really growing here. So dinner might consist of potatoes served with a side dish of rice or, if you're lucky, onions. But people collect dung from yaks to use for the stoves because there aren't really any trees, just a few bushes. So we're going on a journey and I want you to come along. This is our driver and this is our car. It's a journey through Tajikistan, a country I didn't even know existed before I ended up there. It's part of Central Asia, and it sounds like a place far, far away, but it's actually in the center of everything. Right between Europe, Russia, China, Middle East, and India. And we are very, very far from the ocean. There is, however, a river between the two countries, Afghanistan and Tajikistan. It's a natural border. I traveled along this border for several days and I noticed the difference between the two countries. On our side of the river, there is a road, although a quite bumpy one, but on the Afghanistan side there is only a donkey track and you can see donkey caravans far, far away. And when night falls, you can see some lights from homes on our side, while Afghanistan is left in darkness. Along this border there's a very special market. It's on a little island in the river, so it's a no man's land between the two countries. To get there, we have to leave our passports here to the military guard at the gate. You can buy paint, pigments, cheap plastic stuff, probably made in China. And there's a man with a table who is selling, can you guess? Cell phones. You can also buy carpets from a very serious looking man. Or you can get your future told by a man with a book. So in this borderline and unstable area, it's just Saturday and people from the two countries, they meet and life goes on as usual. And our journey continues as well. Our driver, he doesn't know any English, but he knows a few words in Russian. And one of the words that he says the most is the word for car, machina. So we continue in the machina up through North Tajikistan, traveling through valleys. Machina is down here. And during the course of the journey, I also learned to understand the meaning of the phrase machina kaput. But we make it up north to the border crossing between Tajikistan and the next country. So there's a lot of stans, right? You know, there's 7 of them. It's Tajikistan, Afghanistan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Pakistan, Kazakhstan, and the last one is the one we're going, Kyrgyzstan. And this used to be part of the Silk Road. Today there's a different commodity traded along this route, and it's drugs. So this particular border crossing, it has a reputation for being very difficult to get through. The guards might search your whole car or ask for bribes. Who knows what happens? So I'm quite nervous. I mean, we're the only car at the crossing, so the guards can really take their time. There's nobody waiting in line after us. We hope that our driver will get us through smoothly. He has left with our passports. And we are waiting in the machina. Then, some guards dressed in camouflage clothes, they approach the car. And they are waving their hands and pointing at me and ask me to come out. And I hesitate, but they are really insisting. I'm the only woman in the group, and there are guys with Kalashnikovs outside telling me to come out. So I go with them, have no idea what they want from me. But they take me to a house, And one of the men takes out a book and asks me to read. Okay, so let's hold it there. How did you like to start my presentation? I mean, did you expect something else, maybe?
Yes.
We could try another version, right? Could have started with an icebreaker. I could have started by telling you about recently moving to Skåne and starting a new job at Freedom in Malmö. I could tell you how it is to join like a startup company and growing company. And about moving a whole family with a notice of 2 months. And also about how friendly I find the startup and creative climate here in Malmö. And it is way better than Stockholm. And you might have laughed a little because I would say Stockholm is better than Malmö, or Malmö is better than Stockholm. And that would maybe break the ice. I could also have started with facts. Could have started by telling you I've lived in 22 different homes. In 7 different cities in 3 countries. Sweden, Taiwan and China. I studied languages. English, French, Spanish, Dutch, Chinese. Took courses. I went to art school. Studied C++, Master of Engineering in Industrial Design. I studied the history of aesthetics, art and technology. I started an MBA. And I would have told you about learning new skills. Yoga teacher, sound technician, outdoor leader for kids. I tell you I learned instruments. Piano, singing, guitar, electric guitar. I had a very short and failed attempt of learning the Indian tablas, one of the most difficult instruments there are. And I also tried to play the erhu. It's a 2-string Chinese instrument and you see buskers play on the streets of Shanghai. My teacher was about 100 years old and my Chinese neighbors never even complained, although it sounds like when you try to learn the violin. So I would have told you all those things. And then I would have told you I started all those things and abandoned most of them because there's a beauty in starting something new, but sometimes it's also the right decision to just stop. Right? And finally, I could have started with a confession. My confession would be that I'm addicted to new challenges. And one reason might be that I grew up in the countryside in Värmland in Sweden. It's a place with 5 houses and 20 cows. So I would ask you what you think would happen in that place when I grew up. And it would be a rhetorical question. So I would say nothing. Nothing ever happened there. Which is why probably most of my drastic life changes later on came out of boredom. And when I moved to Shanghai, there were only 3 things in life that would scare me. Volvo, villa and boba. And that's a Swedish expression that basically means being stuck in the suburb with a Volvo car and a dog. And during the 2 weeks that passed since I got the invitation to do this morning talk, I've done this presentation over and over in my head, and I found the result either boring or very self-centered. And I realized I did approach the topic from a very privileged perspective, because there are millions of people in the world from countries like Afghanistan or Tajikistan, and they don't leave their homes out of boredom, right? They leave out of necessity to survive, to escape wars. That's a totally different way of starting over that I have absolutely no experience of whatsoever. I have no idea what it's like to be in a new home country without connections, education, language, money. But I do, however, know what it's like to be at the border crossing in Tajikistan with guards that are heavily armed. They have brought out the book. On the left side there's a language I don't know, and on the right side there's the English translation. A man is pointing on the English page, so I read it out loud. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right-doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other, doesn't make any sense. So I stand at the border crossing with a bunch of guards who just want to hear the favorite Persian poet, Rumi, in English. And in my mind and heart I often return to this moment. Why? Well, for me, it represents the balance in life.
It's all good.
Between productivity and poetry. So on the productivity side we have decisions, activity, border crossings, official roles, checking passports, getting from point A to B. On the poetry side there's stories, awareness and connection between people, no matter from what country in the world. And if we're constantly on the productivity side, we get burnt out, sick. And if we're only doing poetry, who's going to put food on the table, right? In Buddhist philosophy, the ultimate goal of life is to stop it. To stop this painful circle of birth, life, death, rebirth, all over again into eternity. And when you think about it, like, you go up in the morning, you brush your teeth, you get dressed, over and over again, days become weeks, and weeks become months, months become years. It's Christmas, again, and they start the Christmas decoration very, very early, again. And some weird guy wins the American election again, right? But you inhale, and did you know that with every inhalation, actually the pulse goes up just a little? There's activity, productivity, facts, decision. And then you exhale. And with each exhalation, the pulse goes down again. You have relaxation, beauty, poetry. And then it all restarts. And that would be an excellent ending to this presentation, right? But I haven't even given you what was promised in the invitation. An invitation that was written before I got all philosophical about this topic. I haven't been promised to hear me share my best and worst restarts. And I didn't even mention the word restart until the very last sentence, right? So I guess we need another
Restart.
Yes. Okay. 2003, I had a very exciting one. And it's probably the most life-changing one, as it led to all the other restarts after that. I was a student in Taiwan. It was the first time I even visited Asia, and my first move to another country. I was probably culture shocked for the whole year, trying to find things that were familiar to me, and constantly failing. I mean, there were hundreds of Hello Kitty dolls, but I couldn't find a single pair of women's shoes size 41. And I know there's a Chinese saying that even a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step, but it mentions nothing about finding some shoes for that. And although Taiwan wasn't always easy on my first year, being back in Sweden afterwards, it felt really pale in comparison. I had changed a lot, but nothing had changed at home. So I decided I moved to Shanghai. There were only 3 problems. I had no job, I had no return ticket, and I had nowhere to live. I did get a job within 2 months, and it turned out I didn't need a return ticket because, later I had this machine and other vehicles that would bring me on my way out of China. Regarding the place to live, I had once met a guy on a plane ride, and he was from Canada, but his cousin lived in Shanghai. So I moved in with these people that I didn't know. And that's what I really appreciate about Shanghai. When you're in a place like that where people come and go, it's really easy to make new friends. We would often go out for dinners, and it would start with like 4 people deciding we go for dinner together, and then someone would bring a friend who's visiting town, and that friend would bring another friend, and you end up at a big table with 10-15 people that you don't even know. But when you're in a place where there's a big fluctuation of people, you have to make friends fast, as tomorrow they might be in Kuala Lumpur or somewhere else. Next restart. I was fired. Every day on the way to work, I had been daydreaming of leaving. I was really unhappy with my job, until finally this unhappiness led to physical pain in my right arm. I learned how to use the computer with my left hand until that started hurting as well. So I asked my boss to get some flexibility in my work hours, and so I could go exercise a bit, and maybe a little bit financial support for rehab. But they don't really have Swedish style of workers right in China, right? So my boss responded by firing me. And even though I didn't enjoy working there, it was a shock to actually get sacked. It felt like quite a failure. So again, I didn't have a job. But there was this guy that I met at a New Year's party a few months earlier. He was working in Hong Kong, had an office in Shanghai, so he didn't have time to run his own office. So he asked me, can you run my office for me? So I became the director of a sourcing office. There were a few problems. I didn't know anything about sourcing, quality control, or running an office. And after a few weeks, I realized that also my 7 employees knew nothing about any of these topics. Also, besides, we didn't really have any customers. So at the end of each month, there were never enough money to cover the salaries. I would pay my staff out of my own pocket, and the owner would complain for a few days and then transfer money from Hong Kong. Now, you might hope for a story how I solved this, but the truth is I can't really say I did. So also this wasn't the right place and time for me. And if you must fail, it's better to fail quickly, so I left after less than a year. Next and final restart is the most emotional one. I had done this journey through Tajikistan and many other countries. It was supposed to be a creative journey, right, with my partner to find a new place to live. But I failed with my relationship, I failed with finding a purpose, and failed starting a new life together. So I ended up alone in India. And in this moment of shame and confusion, of course, I decided to become a yoga teacher. There were a few problems, you could have guessed, right? I was quite uncomfortable with handling emotions and people. And I was very nervous about speaking in public. I could not reach my toes. Did I become the best yoga teacher in the world? No, probably not, right? But the point is, I did improve in all these areas, including reaching my toes. Again, we have been dealing a lot with productivity for a while. And when there's too much productivity, I'd like to take a step back and start over and go back to poetry. So I have one more quote from Rumi, who actually happens to be born in this borderland between Afghanistan and Tajikistan. Run from what's comfortable. Forget safety. Live where you fear to live. Destroy your reputation. Be notorious. I have tried prudent planning long enough. From now on, I'll be mad. And can you believe this guy lived in the 13th century? This sounds like my life, right? Yeah. Finally, I like to share one advice I got about storytelling and writing. It's first, write your story, then move the beginning to the end, and the end to the beginning. So I'd like to finish by telling you that, hi, my name is Klara. I'm the CEO of Freedrum here in Malmö, and I'm here today to talk on the topic of restart. Thank you.